Hello, today we're talking with Oksana Vovchenko. She's joining us from Winnipeg, Canada, and we will be talking about the cancel culture. Yes, Oksana, please, can you introduce the topic?
I would suggest to start from definition, as I always do. What definition would you give to cancel culture, just to make things clear?
Well, it's a pretty new thing. Obviously, it means that...
Excuse me, but do you think that's a new thing or just new term?
It's a new term. It existed since it exists in animals even. Probably not, but it's when the society is trying to exclude certain part of the society, not for what they do, but for the association to a certain qualities and like by association, not exactly that these people do something different or wrong, but because they are certain nationality or sex orientation or opinions or political views, they get excluded, ignored. In our times, ignoring is equal to killing. I remember this day when Trump was banned from Twitter. I'm by no ways I support Trump or I'm his sympathizer, but the fact that they shut up the person and person actually ceased to exist in the media space, it feels like murder. It feels like murder, exclusion, ignoring. And I'm against it. I'm against it. And I think it's wrong. Everybody has to be treated equally. And those attempts in Facebook and other social media to prevent us from listening to those groups, it's like saying that we are idiots and we cannot decide by ourselves what is true and what is false, what is right and what is wrong. In the situation with Ukraine and Russia, excluding Russian agenda from Ukrainian media and excluding Ukrainian agenda from Russian media, first of all, it's not done entirely, because on YouTube you still can find both ways. And if you really want, you can go and find the Russian TV online and listen to whatever they have to say and things like that. So those that want to get these things, they still can get these things. But the censorship is actually treating us in a way that we are not capable of making up our mind. Maybe for the period of war with two sides fighting with each other, it's okay. But the countries that are not part of the war in active way, for example, excluding Russians, that has nothing to do with it, that have probably immigrated tens of years ago and probably are the most active opponents of the Putin regime, and they still can be labeled and suffer from cancel culture as a result. We remember those days when the Germans attacked Russia on the First World War. Russia even renamed their cities. St. Petersburg was renamed to Petrograd, for example. The royalty of England has changed their last name to Windsor. I think there was the problem with development of Einstein's ideas in Great Britain because Einstein was associated with Germans. But Einstein was not German, he was Jewish. And his ideas was not only international, they were quite universal for the universe. And those things are, I think, stupid, very damaging, and should not be pursued. And what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think that if this phenomena existed for thousands of years and it looks like something intrinsic for humanities, how can we change that? If we're really able to build inclusive societies.
We already do this. If you look at my channel, I talk to Ukrainians 50% of the time, and I talk to Russians another 50% of the time. Scientists. We almost never discuss politics. And that's the important thing. Like, I can discuss politics with you. I cannot discuss politics with people that risking their lives and freedom when they live in Russia, right, in the public space. And especially, a lot of things are clear without it. So when I invite the scientists, we discuss their works. We do not exclude them from this process. We understand that Russian is not the same as supporters of Putin politics. Russian is not associated with the war the same way as any other anti-national ideas, very bad for the development, and that's what we do. We wouldn't have this opportunity in the previous times when we didn't have these direct links to others. Like in Second World War or the First World War, we didn't have the internet, and the communication was under way more government control than it is now. But right now we have those links that allow us to keep communicating and not excluding each other for the ideas and thoughts and so on. I also have thoughts that can be condemned by either side. And even we have discussed some issues that could be questionable by Ukrainians. But you tolerated me speaking up my mind, and we have those programs on YouTube still. And I believe this enriches the content, because I'm not just the one who repeats all the same that everybody else. I'm just trying to look at the things from a little bit of distance, to distance ourselves, and to have insights that will allow to analyze different situations more productively and closer to their true shape. So, yeah.
But I see that you are I define you as a humanist, and you always translate some very deep values as love, kindness, support. But what if someone's ideas contradict modern moralities badly? Just express ideas for killing or some unacceptable things? Can we still tolerate him?
Look, it's not about the ideas, it's about the form. If it's in the form of propaganda, then it should be banned. But if someone is expressing their philosophical ideas, you will find very offensive many things that Aristotle said about the slaves and that they're predestined to be slaves. Plato, in his work, Dialogue, Republic, it's very fascist in nature, that he suggested to divide the society into the castes of traders, those that guards, and the thinkers, and not to let them to mate with each other. It's very fascist, and it's Plato. So again, like ideas, they can be any ideas. Even the cannibal can talk about the philosophy of eating each other, and that it will be more humane than killing each other more than you can eat. You know, he can say, you guys, you are worse than cannibals. You kill hundreds of thousands of people and they just get rotten in the fields. We never kill more than we can eat. That's the approach that can be heard, right? Again, everything that is in the context of discussion, which is not propaganda. Propaganda, it is trying to surround you and convince you that this is the only truth, and you should not listen to anything else, and you should not analyze whatever it is said. It's a culture of the communication, all right? Like we can see this example on Russian TV, where they do not have any culture. They just incomprehensibly shout at each other, and you cannot even understand what people say. There is no problem if the person logically is trying to explain his view of the situation, even if it's completely contradicts your view. That's where the interesting discussion can start, if you have this culture of discussion. There can be any views. There can be views that humans are bad for the planet, that our world is not does not deserve to exist, that the nuclear war will be the good thing for whatever, that God is the evil spirit that is creating the situations and the worlds, and some of the views I might say by myself, as you know my philosophy, right? It doesn't mean that it all has to be banned. Everything is about the culture of the interaction, not being aggressive, not using it as a propaganda tool, but in a philosophical discussion or cultural way, you can claim any claims. Like I showed you this outrageous claim of the cannibal, but he has something to it. Because look what's happening right now, like hundreds of thousands of people were killed. And especially the war as it goes now, it's completely like the killer doesn't see whom he kills, because it's artillery duels war. The death comes from the distance of 30-40 kilometers away. They don't see whom they kill. And those that get killed, they don't see who kills them. Sometimes in Ukraine, they don't know who's shooting the shots, either side. And this is inhumane and very bad. Like you are sending those missiles, and you don't know whom they will kill and where they will end, which it makes different from the older times, when at least in most of the cases they can see the enemy and they could justify their actions by the fact that this particular enemy is threatening to kill you, so you're doing it in defense. So yes, it sounds a little bit like Elon Musk, that everything should be open and discussable, and him buying Twitter and saying that it will be ultimately, yeah. But on the other hand, we all come from Soviet Union, where we have had censorship, very, very strict. And I thought that we really have the dislike towards censorship. We want to be able to hear and see what people have to say. Also, in order to make peace, we need to understand what is the concerns of other side and what are the motives, why they're doing this, and whether those motives at some point can be legitimate motives. And trying to understand your enemy is the first step to peace. Wow, I said something wow. Trying to understand your enemy is the first step to peace.
Well, that sounds great. It would be wonderful if it goes both way.
But it has to
from
start
both
somewhere.
sides.
It has to start somewhere. It has to start somewhere. If nobody starts, then it will not start. So someone has to start. Someone has to start.
But returning to Elon Musk and the propaganda issue, if you are a public person and you're very popular and you are an opinion leader, how can we distinguish or separate personal opinion from propaganda? Because anything you say will look like a propaganda just because you're opinion leader. In the case of Elon Musk, not long ago, he wrote that he proposed a discussion, shall we give away some Ukrainian areas to Russia? And that tweet was taken very aggressively in Ukrainian society. It was a scandal. And Elon Musk was on the edge of canceling, really, in Ukraine, even though he sent Starlinks to support our troops. But after that tweet, he was on the edge of total canceling. And just a week later, he said, okay, I don't want this discussion, go back.
Yeah, but he's smart. He's smart. And this is the smart thing to do, to stop war immediately. When you say that the Russia will get stronger and will do the things again, but you forget that you will get stronger as well. If you stop the war right now, the question of Ukraine joining NATO by fact or by whatever is decided. Like Russia, if it stops the war, will still continue to suffer from everything that has been already done. It will still be separated from the world. There'll still be the chance for the change of the power. But if the war stops immediately, people will stop dying on both sides. There is no practical ultimate victory. Even Zelensky said yesterday, we're not going to take Moscow. We're not going to take Moscow. And if you're not going to take Moscow in the Second World War style, you will not be able to dismantle the regime which is causing this war. And understanding that does not, like, okay, let's say the war was stopped right now. There may be so many processes, and if you look at the Russian history, the change of the power sometimes happened not during the war, but after the war. There was a war in Japan, and then there was a revolution. And then there was another war. And in Germany, there was a war, and then there was a revolution. Nikolai I died after the war in Crimea, right? So Russia is already poisoned, self-poisoned with what it did. But the wounded animal is still a very dangerous animal. Let them die. Let them reborn. But the war has to stop right now. It doesn't matter where this temporary border is, because when this change will come to Russia, you will get everything for free without anybody dying at all. The new leader will sign the paper, the Crimea will come back to you, that's all. You see?
I do not
It
agree,
cannot be
because
achieved.
for us, it's
It
not so
cannot be achieved
simple.
on
That's
the
not just
battlefield.
about line. That's not just about line, but that's about crimes which Russia do in those areas. In those areas, they really murder people. They really torture people there. It's
Yeah,
not so simple.
but
Just draw the line. But
when
what
the
is the
Ukrainians
destiny of
will
those
come,
people who stay there?
when Ukrainians will come to the same areas, those that have collaborated with Russians will go to a very long time to prisons. So in both ways, people will suffer. And in both ways, I think they should not suffer. In both ways, I think that any hostilities has to stop. And later on, there are different ways how the fight can be continued, but not on the battlefield. Not on the battlefield. Russia has such a weak position already that if you continue the war for another month or 2 months or 3 months, it will not make it way weaker than it is already. And live today, die tomorrow, not now. Don't kill. Especially how the killing is happening, I showed you. It's the stupidest thing in human history. People didn't kill each other that way for thousands of years. People killed each other, facing each other, facing the enemy. And here they sit about 30, 40 kilometers away from each other and shooting without seeing where those things are ending up. And it's like crazy children. Yeah?
But
So,
let's link that to cancel culture.
mhm.
Let's link that to cancel culture.
Yeah, if you link it to cancel culture, so Elon Musk can say unpopular things if he thinks those things are justified and right. Nobody is forced to support him. Especially, we need to respect the person that actually made these victories happen, because the Starlink project is allowing to see things that Russians cannot see. They don't have this kind of equipment. So yes, we need to listen to what these people say. They understand where things are going, and again and again, this thing cannot be resolved on a battlefield. Whether it's better or worse, this city is taken or not taken, and it's again, I'll give you the example, okay? North Pole, how many people died by trying to get to the North Pole, just to have a look what is there. And there is nothing there, by the way, nothing. But in terms of Jules Verne and other writers, they fantasize that there's a hole in the earth, or there is a way to the underground world, or whatever. So there was a huge curiosity to go and see what is there. But after 20, 30 years, after they actually reached the pole, we already had the airplanes strong enough to go and see. So it's the same thing. Sometimes the things you can get, it's better to wait and get it rather than to kill half a nation in getting it. All right? It should be off the table to kill. The war has to stop. That's all. It has to stop. And all other things can happen whatever they are. And what I'm saying is not propaganda, because we have two views here, different points of view. And if this is something that Putin would like to hear, that the war has to stop, and I'm saying that the war has to stop, doesn't mean that I'm his supporter. All right? We have very different reasons why we think that it has to stop. I think that he will fall anyways. Even I think that without the war, there will be way more ways to do this, because during the war, he's so powerful in terms of clashing down to the civil freedoms, explaining that there is a war, and the mobilization that drove away so many people that could have resist him or do some political work or whatever they can. Like the leader during the war is becoming stronger, even if he's losing the war. Oh, another aphorism. Look, the war leader is becoming stronger, even if he's losing the war, if he is in a war situation, because he has very special powers that he wouldn't be able to execute when there is no war. He will not be able to justify a lot of things if there is no war, right? So yeah, in every time when we have the opportunity to stop killing, the killing has to be stopped. It doesn't matter how amazing Ukrainians are in warfare and in their progress, it has to stop. Yeah. And for what I say, 90% of Ukrainians would do this cancel culture towards me. My only hope is that nobody is listening to me, so I can say whatever. And we also speak English, that most of people there will not listen to this point. So it's the same as going out at 3 o'clock in the morning and trying to attract attention. Nobody is listening. But yes.
and so that you will not suffer from this cancel in any way. But the
I
Putin
am suffering a
well,
little bit, like user-friendly language. This is not like I'm sending these invitation messages to a lot of Ukrainians, and my audience is Ukrainian mostly because of the cancel culture, and Russians are not allowed to join, right? And but still, the freedom of expression, the ability not to judge, like in this case, I'm expressing the certain political views that are unacceptable for most of people in Ukraine, and it's not really cancel culture. The cancel culture would be not to include me into the conversation only because I speak Russian, or things like that. So it's not the opposition to the views; it's opposition to certain belonging to a group by association. That's what it is. So this is stupid. It's very stupid. And you say that for so many thousands of years it was there. People did a lot of stupid things for thousands of years. I don't like the idea of authority of something old and long-term traditions as something that has to continue.
Now you reminded me that famous recent speech of Putin when he told about cancel culture. Maybe you heard. And he sounded very offended because he was the one who suffered from cancel culture. He is not welcome anywhere, and no one recognized him as an equal, and no one would shake him an arm. What bothers me is that when we cancel a person, he does not learn lesson. He become even more angry and opposite himself toward others even more.
Yeah. The problem is that, again, we can look on the same situation from very different points of view. Like geopolitical point of view has nothing to do with the personal level. Things that geopolitically sound might be very harmful to a person. And we know this philosophy of Dostoevsky, that the happiness of the entire world doesn't worth a tear of a toddler, of a baby. And he's not using this approach. He's using the opposite approach, that he can kill as many children as he wishes just to achieve some of his geopolitical ideas. And that's why we're rejecting him, all of us. He should not have started the war. But it doesn't mean that Russia had concerns. America, well, now you're on our soil, American continent, you will learn that Americans are very rude and very rough competitors. Canadians are very nice, and Americans are very rude. And when we do business in America, we can feel it. And they were competing with Russia on the influence on the European energy markets. They were interested in destroying the ability of Russia to sell natural gas and oil. And actually, they achieved whatever they wanted. They cannot do it anymore. And it doesn't matter how it happened. The elements of a very rough competition, rude competition, is there. And you can feel it right away when you take your business south to the United States. It's very rough. It's their style. And it's not acceptable style. Again, I'm saying you cannot kill, you cannot start the war, but you cannot ignore the fact that Americans are playing rough, and that they did cause this war. They did cause this war by their interference in the Ukrainian affairs, by their very rough politics that has caused two people that were living together for so long to fight each other and kill each other like there is no tomorrow. Did they cause that? Yes, they did. When you interfere that way, that's what you do. Cortez came to Central America. How did he kill everybody? By making friends with some tribes and leading them towards fighting other tribes. The same thing here, the external interference is causing to those things. Again, I'm saying something that nobody wants to listen to. But if we do not discuss those things, they will continue to happen. They will continue to happen. Of course, the way Putin was trying and still trying to resolve the problems, which they do exist. The problems, they do exist. It's just not the way how you solve them. You just make them worse. And that's what he doesn't understand. He likes the history, so he had to go and read the history. Russia was always like that. I read recently the memoirs about the First World War. They started the war the same way. They didn't have resources. They didn't have the personnel. They all the same things. They didn't have the warm clothes, nothing. They are always like that. And he needs to learn that Russia is not good in war. It has never been good at war. Like the fact that they had some victories, they had so much damage to themselves through those victories. So it can call peer victory, Pirova Победа, when you have more damage than any good results. Yeah, but still we need to remember, it wasn't like everything was pink and nice and pleasant, and all of a sudden the bad guy decided to steal the Christmas. No, it wasn't that bright at all. It wasn't that bright at all. We can see what happened to Ukraine. 11 million people left. Are they going back? I strongly doubt. Many people will not go back. The country has lost the most ambitious, most capable, most developed people, right? The cities are destroyed. The industries are down. This is a nightmare for the country. This is the nightmare for the country. And what Americans do, they give you just enough weapon to keep this war going. They are not giving you enough weapon to win it. And it's obvious, we can see it. Yeah. So your friends that you think your friends, they are not your friends. They are not your friends. They don't care. They were ready to give you away in those 3 days. They were watching you whether you will withstand, and only then they started to help you. Remember, in the first days of Kiev battle and stuff, they were expecting Ukraine to fall. So they are not friends, and those things are not popular. Nobody is talking about it. But okay, what will happen after? Nothing good. Not much good things will happen, even if the war is won. Everybody's saying, "Oh, everybody will support Ukraine," and do you have a guarantee that this will happen? I'm afraid everybody can forget Ukraine. Just forget as hundreds of other countries that got forgotten. We were talking about Rwanda. Nobody remembers Rwanda now, or other countries that has been destroyed. So it's not necessarily it will get the needed help, and so yeah, I wouldn't be very optimistic about it.
Oh, I'm going to be optimistic. But one more issue about cancel culture, I would offer to scale the topic down from geopolitical to personal, some intimate level, and ask you a personal question. Did you cancel someone in your life?
Yes.
I confess that I did, not once.
I did. I'm guilty of that, and mostly recently I do it intentionally. Mostly in business relationship, not personal relationship. When the things are going not in the right place. But again, it's not cancel culture. Cancel culture would be that if I was dealing with Russians and when the war started, I should have stopped all relationship with them only because they are Russian. No, on a personal level, it's not cancel culture. It's just you weight the benefits and the negatives of dealing with someone. And when you feel that it takes too much of your effort and it doesn't lead anywhere, I couldn't say no before, but now I can. I can openly say I do not wish to continue it anymore, and I did it recently with some. But some of them are very persistent, and they say, no, we will continue to work, and somehow we're still working, because again, I reconsider if I have income, then I will probably keep working.
It doesn't sound like a real canceling, but just a personal choice.
It's a not cancel culture, no.
Yes, but if we speak about diverse people, for example, when a mother may cancel father from the family, just propaganding her children not to communicate.
I was a victim of such canceling. Yeah. And it's very unfair. And but again, we're trying to take it to the level where this term cannot be used, because it's more of behavior and psychology rather than here we deal with societal level where someone is banned from everywhere only because he belongs to a certain group of people, and sometimes belonging to this group is not his choice. That's the problem. That's what we shouldn't do. That's what we shouldn't do. Yeah.
Okay, let's summarize our dialogue for today.
Yeah, that was a very interesting conversation, and welcome to Canada.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
you inspired me for building inclusive societies. And I would really observe here that Canadian society is far more inclusive than Ukrainian. And being here for 3 days, I feel that just what I can see in the streets and talking to people.
We are very hypocritical, you know, it's лицемерно. It seems like that, but people can think quite differently what they say. All right.
That doesn't matter. They may think, but the way they behave, it's really important.
Wait until you have to send your resume.
Okay.
They might make their decision based on your last name, which can sound to them Russian. That's the reason why so many people change their last names and first names. Like I was doing business not as Boris, I was Bruce.
Yeah, that's important, and probably this is
Only
why
recently, when Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister of Great Britain, I thought, what the hell? If he can, why can't I? Yeah.
But yes, when I selected the country where I can go to, one of my main fears was that I will be excluded from the society.
I don't want you to be
important.
euphoric. You will be excluded. It's the first impression, but the truth is we're very separate here. Our communities live their very enclosed lives. We do not mix much. We mix at the workspace, we mix at some social things, but mostly it's the number of a very small communities living very tightly together, and they're not mixing. In Toronto, you can not hear English for like, well, you will hear English with a lot of accent, but you can do business, family life, leisure, and everything in your ethnic language, and they're not mixing, and it doesn't make the country very, very tight together. And Canadians themselves, yes, they're very nice, but it's hard sometimes. If you ask whom I would hire mostly, like you would say, it's a cancel culture game, right? But I have an experience. I lived in a very small place where all of them were just locals, and I was the only immigrant, and I had to manage those teams, and it was very hard to run business with them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I confess that I canceled all my Russian or Belarusian connections just because they are Russian or Belarusian, because they have no emotional ability to manage that. But that's not exactly cancel culture, but my personal choice, I think, because I do not persuade anyone else to do the same I do.
Oksana, it's absolutely understandable. The war is in the hot phase. You cannot expect someone during the hot phase that has been chased away from her country that you loved, from your own city, Odessa, which is the greatest city in the world, besides the very warm sea. You have been driven out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the Northern America continent, in a very harsh winters, by the way. In Winnipeg, they're very harsh. You cannot expect for you to be considerable to those that have caused that. But the war will end. The wounds will heal. And the connections will restore with the time. The same is, I'm Jewish, and my grandfather with the whole family was killed in Ukraine during the Second World War. And a lot of Ukrainians were collaborating with Nazis. My grandmother was killed by Ukrainians. Before that, there was a lot of animosity towards Jewish people in Ukraine. Yes, right now we have the president Zelensky, who is Jew, and it's out of the agenda. But there's a very strong resentment towards this, and that's one of the problems why Israel is not helping. That's the reason. On one hand, Zelensky is Jewish. Why they are not helping? But they have these memories about difficult times with Ukrainians, and they are not considering Ukrainians as part of them, and that's one of the. And we heard this reason when Zelensky was pushing. He got the answer that, you know what, remember what happened during the war, and so on and so on. So I was the same. I had the same feeling towards German language, because from early childhood it was associated with Nazis in Germany. But when I got into Orthodox Church and really into the Christianity where I was supposed to love each other, and God has a very good sense of humor, or very bad sense of humor, whatever the taste is, half of my parishioners were German. And not just German. They were children of those that were really Nazis. I had two parishioners, the couple, they were very old, of course, in their late 80s. His uncle was the director of the concentration camp. And another parishioner, he was the one who collaborated with Nazis. And they sat at my table, around my table, and they went to my church. And I had to find the way to see humans in them, not just humans. First of all, they are very nice people. Even the guy that was collaborating with Nazis, killing his own partisans, right? Guerrillas. He was saying, okay, these guerrillas were killing a German officer, and then they were coming and killing the whole population of the village. So we prevented it because we didn't want to our people get killed. So everybody had their justification, and I learned German, and I learned to love this culture, and I made translations from Goethe and Heine, And and my this narrow cancel culture within me against Germans, it disappeared because German became way bigger than just Nazis or remembrance of the war. And also I had seen the human face in people that their fathers and mothers, and they were killing my grandfathers and so on. I don't say that I accept it the way they think or say. I wouldn't say that they regret much, you know. They have their own pains, because when Russian came, they raped his sisters. One of the sisters committed suicide, and they almost killed him when he was 12 years old. The one who has the uncle, who used to be the head of the concentration camp. So he has a very painful personal experience from the liberators. And he has wonderful memories from the childhood when he actually is a nobility from Prussia. They lived in a castle that belonged to them. And he has this font in his last name. He's one of barons, right? And they lost everything, and everybody was killed. And so the God or whoever has shown me the other way, that to any story there are two sides, or even three sides to any story. And it has cured me from cancel culture against German and German language. And now we see the same thing. It's indistinguishably similar. Russians are coming and killing and acting like enemies, right? But with the time, it will get cured, because Russia is more than just their crazy policies. Russia is a huge ocean of culture, of thought, of good things, as Ukraine as well, and other things. And we should not narrow it. But in a hot stage, when this all happens, it's quite understandable. You don't have to explain why we are speaking English and not Russian as we used to. I'm just lucky that you are very good in speaking English, and I spent 22 years in Canada, and I speak fluently. And I respect your choice. I respect your choice not to use Russian language in this hot stage. But with the time, it will cure. It's unfortunate that it happens, but it will.
Well, so let's finish our meeting today.
Absolutely. I'm very glad that at least now you are on a safe soil.
Yeah.
And thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.